to appeal.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. This is Daybreak and we welcome your contributions. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are joined this morning here on the broadcast by Sheila Ojwang, development economist. Good morning, Sheila.
Morning.
Lovely having you here on the broadcast.
Thank you.
And many thanks for your presence. Bashara Njeru is an advocate of the High Court, formerly served as the chairperson of the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, and also an ex-commissioner at the Judicial Service Commission. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely having you on the broadcast.
Thank you very much.
It's timely to have you. Professor Peter Kangwanja, good morning.
Good morning. Good
Lovely
morning.
having you.
Thank you very much.
He is the Chief Executive Officer of Africa Policy Institute and also governance commentator. Ahmed Hashi on my immediate right, also governance and political commentator. Lady and gentlemen, pleasure to have you here on the broadcast. Let's begin with a look at the front pages of the dailies, which dovetails into our conversation this morning here on the state of human rights and democracy. The troubling partnership, says the Daily Nation, between police and gangs revealed in day of chaos in Nairobi. Goons unleash terror, ganged arms with crude weapons wage war. Shot by police, face mask vendor was shot in the head at close range by a uniformed police officer on a day when businesses shut down, making losses. And Ojwang protests spread across the country, with now demonstrators calling for the resignation of the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Elliot Lagat. I first begin with you, Counsel. Given what happened yesterday, is the right wording a slide into anarchy or all the hallmarks of bearing the same?
Let me start by sending my sincere condolences to the family of Albert Ojwang and all those others who have been injured and killed. It's extremely sad, but not surprising in my view, because if you look at the trend that has been there, it's one that clearly shows an intention of emasculating all independent agencies, and particularly the police. And that always happens when there's an intention to become a country that is governed by a dictator. In fact, if you look at history of dictatorships in other countries, this is the way it starts. And the way it happens is that a leader with a couple of loyalists will want to control everything, so that power is centered around one individual. And all the independent agencies that are supposed now to be checking to ensure that these checks and balances are rendered for all intents and purposes powerless. Now, when you have a national police service, it has now become a police force. You know, initially it used to be a Kenya police force. But because of the reforms that are undertaken, which ended up with the 2010 Constitution, it was changed to National Police Service, with the sole intention of making sure this service, it is service to the people. You're supposed to serve people. You're policing with the public, where it is the public that comes first, not the political class. But that has all gone down the drain, because you can see, when you see goons in the streets harassing people, breaking into shops, using crude weapons, and they are being accompanied by police. That tells you that the police are no longer interested in protecting the public. They are interested in preserving power, for a few political, people whose intention is just to ensure that whatever they say or whatever are their intentions in the country, which are personal to them, is what now is ruling the country. So it is worrying, but my view is that whatever are the intentions of the political class, it will not succeed. Because the beauty of it is that you're dealing with a citizenry that is aware. We are also dealing with a very robust 2010 Constitution. So they'll try, but they won't succeed.
And by extension, we'll be looking at the creation of the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, who you had the pleasure of serving as its founding chairperson, created in the aftermath of the post-election violence, and then some of the events we witnessed yesterday, and how that can be taken forward with regards to the quest for justice for the families of the victims who are fallen by police bullet or who are inflicted with injuries as a result of the police high-handedness. Sheila, coming to you. Disturbing, is it, given what happened yesterday and what we witnessed in the city on a day when these demonstrations were, or the protests in itself were against the killing of a Kenyan in police custody? Chilling, is it?
I mean, it's beyond chilling. I think it's completely outrageous. We have protests in the streets over police brutality, and there we are witnessing police conduct that is completely unacceptable. Article 37 of the 2010 Constitution gives us the right to protest. Now, there's limitations on how you protest. You're supposed to be peaceful, and you're supposed to be unarmed. The young man we witnessed being shot at close range yesterday did both things. He had his hands up. There was no weaponry that was found on him. And, you know, they had a 5-second exchange, and that was it. And as he's walking away, without having looted anything, he's shot at close range on his head. Mm-hmm. I mean, so it's completely ridiculous. Police are supposed to protect. They're supposed to protect lives and property, not to take lives and property. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was part of the protest last year, and I can tell you that the places that we did not have police were so peaceful. And the minute they came in, all of a sudden the chaos just began, you know? So it cannot be that we have a police force that refuses to listen. And we have a country of over 50 million people, and the police force is quite small. So, I mean, at some point, they'll have to give in. We cannot continue this way. We have to respect the Constitution. We have to respect the Constitution. And quite frankly, this is just the incident that we saw yesterday is, you know, is completely enraging the public as it is. We don't have trust. We don't trust institutions. We don't trust the police. We don't trust the state. And then you witness things like that. And I have to say, for the first time now, we had the National Police Service issuing a statement right of last night. Mm-hmm. So I always want to encourage the people going out in the streets and calling out for justice that your voice matters. You're making a difference. Because last year, there was no police officer was being arrested, no matter how many pictures of them you had doing whatever. Nobody was getting arrested. We don't know who this officer is. They haven't named who this officer is or where he's been placed under arrest. But we are seeing small changes kind of infiltrating in. And we'll just keep pushing because, I mean, Kenya is our home. We're not going anywhere. There's no other Kenya we have. Nobody's going anywhere. We have to live here, and we'll have to do it the right way. Nobody owns Kenya more than the other, unfortunately. And certainly the ruling class is where the responsibility is, and all these are happening in, ladies and gentlemen, a shadowy conspiracy. It's being planned out in the public, given what we witnessed with the mask vendor, and Ibrahim will help us pull the videos, then we can juxtapose that with the ruling by the Honorable High Court Judge Eric Ogola, who had ruled that police cannot hide their faces in such circumstances. And Prof, this is what we had yesterday. You can clearly see, quite literally, his back against the wall, and we'll have a close-up shot of how that happened. He was unarmed, and later on we established that he was holding a packet of masks on his left hand. Then the police officer comes back. This is now where the shooting happens, and the second time is when now he takes the charge again, joined by his colleague, is when they assault him before they shoot him at a close range, and you can clearly see that. Ideally, Prof, then this is human rights issue, is it? And it's communication out of our state of democracy, questions our commitment to the rule of law.
I think when you're confronted by such horrific, inhuman, very sadistic behavior, something that comes to mind is, how did we get here, really? And that's where historians will help us, because this is more of a psychological problem than anything else, because you cannot do that if you are normal. First and foremost, you do that with pistols. That's why in the security forces, you don't do that with the AK-47. It's supposed to be a long range. It's not supposed to be a close range. So whatever you're doing. But let me put this. Historically speaking, I think today we'll be at the University of Nairobi, or with the University of Nairobi. We'll be discussing the legacy of the Happy Valley. that decadence, that, like kind of life which was there by that Cetra group, where they greeted each other, where, are you married or do you come from Kenya? That kind of culture. And the underlying characteristic of that regime was violence, brute violence. And they visited that violence on our people, the Mau Mau. And for 10 years, they killed, they maimed, they divided this country. You are good for police, you are good for office, and all this kind of thing. Basically naturalizing and normalizing violence. Now, we come after independence, and the same thing is happening under one party. Now, this regime, as it stands now, is the best graduate of the school of violence. I have lived in this country. I've worked for Kenya Human Rights Commission under Mutunga and others. I do know all my scholarship is based on response to violence. I'm the only author in this country on Mungiki. And the reason why I got the data is because we used to go to Kamukunji, another police station, to kind of run there so that the Mungiki do not disappear. At least there is habeas corpus, something like that. And I'm telling you that what we are seeing here is not equal to what we saw. That what we saw was less. This is 3 years into this system. And what I'm seeing is less. It's more than what was there in the 1990s, particularly, because the 1990s was the most notorious. So that said, then, I chaired. I was the head of the Constitution, the intellectual part from the government side. I know there was a committee of experts and others, but those who were thinking for the government that time. And we agreed that we don't need a force, we need a service. And I think Jero has articulated that. That was underlying. And when we were campaigning, we were telling the Kenyans, listen Kenyans, vote for this constitution. Because when you are arrested by the police, before you are arrested by the police officer will come and tell you, naomba ni kushike. And Kenyans would really clap, and because that's what they wanted. They wanted a country where the police respect lives, they respect people, and that it is a surface, it's not a force. Now, what we have seen is the return of the force and the end of the service. So we don't have any service anymore. Now, are we winning? No. Now, you can see why I'm saying it's more, because the police this time are not just coming with their own violence, but they are hiring violence. All violence is hired for them. Those goons, I know they are Jeshi la Mzee. Jeshi la Mzee never came to the streets armed under Mzee Moi. No, Jeshi la Mzee never came. So, can they win this fight? No, they can't win. Because they didn't win against us, and we were few that time. Today, young people under 35 years are 80% of this population. Unless you commit total genocide, you can't be victorious. So there is no alternative to respecting the public, respecting human life. But the question, Abdulkadir, remains.
Yes.
Who is going to police the police?
Okay. We'll talk about that, because Macharia is here, and given his experiences as the first chairperson of IPOA. Ahmed, if we are to juxtapose this with Haiti, and how gangs have taken over 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, and what we witnessed yesterday, this is slowly a graduation process into that, is it, if we are not careful?
You just stole my thunder, so I was just about to speak about that. You remember, Ayub, I was here very early, a few months ago, maybe 6-7 months ago, and I spoke about the mindset, the totalitarian mindset that is in the administration today. And that we were moving closer to an autocracy in this country, and not going the way of a more substantive, transparent system based on the rule of law and all these other things. And I argued that one of the most important things in this country is that since the time of the colonial period up to today, that the institution of the president, through the governor, and later on it transformed into something imperial, is at the very center of our lives in this country. And many of us try to break it up into little parts. That's why we have this constitution that while Mr. Kagwanja was on the side of the government, I was on the other side of the opposition plotting on that same constitution. And I think that the great, the Tom Makut in Haiti, which produced Mr. Barbecue there in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, it is the thuggish culture that has now come into our society. And I think that, into our administration, I think that it is much more sinister than what we are talking about. I think if you look at the three leading police, the Minister of Internal Security, the police commissioner, all the people who were in the security system who came to the Senate to come and speak about, and the subsequent massive black holes that emerged from their testimony about the time of Mr. Ojwang and the process in which he went through until his death. Any first-year lawyer at the University of Nairobi would tear apart their case, and they'd be convicted in the morning. So what does that then say about the role of the state and the security system in our country? It tells us that, that the president and his men have decided that they're going to walk a certain path, and they're not going to brook any kind of challenge. You saw the president the other day said that he's not going to hand over power to a clueless, planless people who don't know what they're doing, which is a clear indication that no matter what happens in the election, the president is not going to give up power. But he hasn't read the Constitution. You know, the Constitution says that he doesn't have to be there. Last time it was here, me and Mr. Kagwanja on another station who convinced Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, you remember, to go to the inauguration because we want to see power being handed over. Yeah. And Mr. Kenyatta graciously listened to both of us. And I think that it is very important that Mr. Ruto understand that the balance of power in this society is not with him. It is not with the state. It is not with the military. It is not with the security forces. It is with the people of this country. Because we have crossed the Rubicon, or cross the Nile, or cross River Susiani in Eldoret, to go to another country called the Promised Land. We're just beginning our journey towards trying to create a better society, a better economy, and better people in this country. And for the president to act and speak in this way makes a mockery, no? Mockery is too light a word. It makes a rebellion of the Constitution of Kenya. And I urgently believe that these two forces in this country, the one that does not want this autocracy and the ones that want to reverse the clock, are going to clash. And you know, in the second inaugural of Mr. Abraham Lincoln, in which there was the Civil War in the United States, he told them that if all the wealth that the United States has piled from slavery has to burn and to be destroyed for us to build this country again, but not build it on sin, so be it. I'm asking the president, and I think the president is not at the place of asking. Last time we asked him these things and he didn't respond to it. We are very senior citizens in this country. And I have also worked with the president. The president has to understand that he got elected into power by the people of this country. He gave them certain promises. He broke those promises. He has broken the promises on the Constitution. And today, the actions of these thugs in the streets of Nairobi is a signal to the people of Kenya about what is going to happen in this country in the future.
Thank you. And when we get back from the break, lady and gentlemen, we'll also track back the promise to end cases of extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, weaponization of state institutions, the sacking of George Kinoti, who was then the DCI director, by the president, ostensibly for the killings that happened during the tenure of the last regime, and the Rivayala chronicles that we had of the bodies that were found. All that after the break here on the broadcast, and we welcome your contributions. We are back with that after the break. Stay tuned.